course, the technology has a huge role to play. Apart from the fact that people have the option of getting bored in a lecture back then and now in terms of the mobile usage. First of all, let us start with the fact that the teaching has always been good and in terms of, invigorating experience of learning. Of course, there are always exceptions. Some courses may excite you, some courses do not. And that is a common thing, whether you are in electrical or physics or computer science or whatever your GPA is and all. So, given that we had a very interesting and also very fantastic learning experience, I would say, even back then. And but of course, back then we didn't have too much information. And so we could not, actually, technology has a strong, very big role to play. Okay. So although it might seem obvious, back then we did not have source of information. So we used to have class notes, right? And we used to have seniors class notes. And sometimes given, let's be informal at this point, I was also involved a lot in the cult activities here, GC cult, and I was a musician. I actually got institute cultural citation, the highest one. So I was also actively involved in PAPs and things. So all this I'm saying because I would have definitely missed a few classes here and there, right? So this is where I'm getting at. So at that level, since we did not have so much information, available everywhere, internet, nothing much, we were just starting to see the tip of the iceberg of internet. So let's put it this way: we relied heavily on analog material or material in class, and so we had to rely on some of our batchmates who were maggu, as you would call it, and we used to go to their room and study before exams and all that. But there were some courses that were so exciting, and I wouldn't really miss them. And and so some of these, it was not about the lecturer. I mean, it was not about the professor. It was more about the content itself. You see, and so those kinds of things, yeah, we had a lot of excitement and all that. But on average, I don't see a big difference in the attitude because you're young and you want to explore IIT Bombay in a more, it's an ocean. Let's put it this way. Those who have been here will get to know that. And it's an ocean for you to expand beyond just your acads with whatever talent you have. It was a great place to sort of broaden ourselves. So in that sense, yes, I would have not been terribly what do you call sincere in all courses. But I do not understand what the situation now is, how people access the material. I think that's the first difference I see, that it's much easier to access things now than back then, because we used to actually run around to get old question papers. We used to also exactly rely on Xerox copies of class notes. And for getting Xerox copies, we used to actually go all the way to sometimes Y Point and beyond to actually make copies of those famous notes of some of the students, because we don't have Zoom. Oh, forget Zoom. Even in the offline classes, we don't have Zoom. And class notes were a vital part of our mugging culture, as you would want to call it. The next important thing I felt was I regret totally. Let's let it be an advice for people who are studying now. I think this is also common, that I was studying primarily to get the exams done, and that's not really the right attitude. And I strongly do not like it. But unfortunately, back then, it was a very tight program. We had to do 8 courses, 6 courses, finish them. Next, in terms of seminar and so other courses that required research a little later in the 4-year program, we needed tons of material, right? Like papers and research stuff. It's not like that you go to the net and type it down. You don't get that anymore, right? We had to go to the library. There was a journal section on the mezzanine floor of the library. Do you remember that? I hope it's still there. And we had to actually fish out actual journals, which are thick books, open some pages, get the paper Xeroxed, pay money, and bring them up. So you had this much collection of Xeroxes, right? Which you would probably not have now if you had an iPad or just the internet access. So I would strongly think that the technology has played a very crucial role. But as far as the experience is concerned, I still think that I personally feel that back then we were more appreciative of the IIT environment, possibly. And I think nowadays, I'm not sure if, you know, everyone who actually comes to class really realizes, the kind of worth IIT has in terms of the professors teaching them, the latest stuff and things like that. But I definitely see the big difference being like a lot more analog in one sense, that we had to actually struggle to get information if you on a regular basis. And there was more personal touch, I think. We would actually have to sort of meet people to get stuff. I don't know if that still goes on. Actually, I've not been terribly involved in the cult activities of IIT Bombay, so I wouldn't really know the big difference. And let me add the fun part, sleeping was quite common in class. If that is common now also, I do not know. Yeah, but yeah. I often, there's this funny incident that 8:30 a.m. classes can end up in a sort of a slumber, you know, continuation of some kind. But one thing that has not changed is the informal nature in IIT Bombay, more or less has been maintained, right? I think faculties are a bit chilled out compared to, let's say, you spend time in an outside college where rules are more stringent. Like there's a dress code, there is a code for not coming to class, there's a code for coming late. There's a lot more sir stuff going on. I think IIT has a lot more westernized in that sense. Yeah. It was a very strenuous schedule, right? You wake up, you go walking to class and come back, have lunch, go back. Same thing I think is going on now also, right? And labs. And we had less computers back then, right? So any little thing we needed computers, we had to go to what was called a computer center. Do you know that? This is actually it was a standalone center right in front of SOM, right now where that Igloo building is there, right? Crescent building. There used to be a standalone computer center, and we had to go there. There was only means of jugaading information or doing programming of some kind. It used to be a large line, right? Long line. And one of the jokes there is that you lose an umbrella or sandals there, chappals, right? So one of the famous places where things get stolen, right? Yeah. So first step is, I would say academically, I got well trained in IIT. So it was not a big gap to actually do the postgraduate study in Purdue. I'm talking about only the academics part, whereas I'm only talking about courses. One of the important components of postgrad life is research too. That is a different story. But in IIT, the kind of coursework I experienced and the kind of coursework I saw in post graduation, it was not a big gap. So we could easily do those courses well. But the big difference in American postgrad education is the big stress on assignments, which is not too much in IIT, I felt. Although there are assignments, people manage regards of some kind. But over there, assignments are very serious. Nobody really goes and, hey, help me out, I'll copy, whatever that is not there. But people are very strict. Assignments form a huge is a big thing. Assignments more than even exams. So we actually had to work very hard for only 3 courses a semester, right? That was a big difference, and also coping up with research, which was a little bit new for us back then because IIT at that stage we didn't really do too much of hi-fi research during the BTech and BTPs and all. The next thing, of course, in grad school life is you have to do everything by yourself. America is like a country where you can't just, have someone to clean your stuff and all, right? So you go to an apartment, mostly stay with a couple of people, and you have to manage all your chores in the morning, cook your own stuff, or eat outside, blah, blah, blah. So manage your finances. So everything you're on your own compared to what you are in IIT. Nobody cares about cleaning your place or things like that. So that stuff is there. And last but not the least, a bit of culture shock is there when you go to a new country, which is kind of very different from your home country. So there's a lot of coping up that's needed at a grad school level. Yeah, so it's okay. Slowly get accustomed and acclimatized to that. Yeah, but surely from the academic point of view, one big difference, apart from the fact that it's not a huge gradation in difficulty, is the fact that the assignments and stuff had to be done very honestly. They're very long, they consume a lot of time, and again the coursework is a bit intense, but not super tough compared to what you would have done in IIT. I could start with a joke. First of all, everything that I'm doing is theoretical and computational, which means experiment is not for me. And when did I decide that? It is a PH lab, I think 20 something, second year. And we were asked to measure the something called a Millikan's oil drop experiment. Have you heard of this? Right, you just see that oil drop pass through and you measure something and you get the charge of the electron. Right, I got the precise answer. And so the lab assistant said, either you get a Nobel Prize or you're such a bad experimentalist, right? Obviously, you're not supposed to get the precise value in your first trial. I was like, wow, I got it exact 1.619 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs, right? So that's when I realized I'm not fit for experiments. So I really had to drive myself theoretically. Okay, so then I went to Purdue. And at that point, I was very interested in fiber optics and optical communication research, and which is why my BTP was somewhat related to these fields. Okay. Then I went there and I started working on, I did my master's in fiber optic communication and related optoelectronic devices. And even there, I was supposed to do experiments eventually because the group was experimental. And at that point, I decided I'm not really cut out for experiments anyway, based on my first experience in IIT and not doing any lab course properly. Just cannot do it. I don't have the focus. I don't have the sleight of hand, or I simply lack that interest. So after I finished my master's, somehow managed to do theory in an experimental group. But the advisor said, okay, you managed 2 years doing only theory, but if you really want to do a PhD, you got to move into experiments. And that is when I had actually taken a course from Supriyo Datta, the author of the several textbooks that I use in the nanoelectronics. He's a prolific teacher. And he really, I felt his work is very inspiring because I took his course while right there. Was a very approachable person. And at that point, I thought, let me work for him. And then I just spoke to him that, look, I'm finishing my master's, but I don't think I'm cut out for experiments. And I think I completely enjoyed your course and more or less excited, incited, etc. by it. So then, after a bit of discussions, I got in to do PhD with him. So that's when it has always been in that direction of exploring nanoscale devices in quantum transport and computational work. And the field, luckily, is progressing so fast that I'm not falling short of things to do. Because theory, again, doesn't require that much infrastructure. Much of what I can do, I can achieve sitting on the same MacBook that I'm talking to you with, or an iMac. So in that sense, I'm reasonably lucky that I can be productive sitting, with pen and paper, iPad, and a good MATLAB or any computational package and good computers. And I'm very excited about this field simply because as and when ever since I finished my postdoc and joined IIT Bombay, I have never fallen short of new problems to do. And I'm constantly getting very good students who are more and more excited to do these problems. And so I have never found more, any moment during my last 9 years. It's actually finishing 9 years a couple of days ago. Yeah, so no, in the past 9 years, I haven't found moments where I was feeling okay. There's nothing much to do. So it's been on a forward slope. Yeah, you might ask what made you do this topic particularly is also inspired by the fact that I was doing very well in quantum mechanics related stuff. Besides, I'm in electrical engineering. And so this I felt like a good amalgam of deep physics combined with actual aspect of engineering because you have to understand current flow in any device, whether it's a MOSFET or whether it is a spin transistor or whether it's some fancy device for quantum technologies. Eventually, the flow of currents at the quantum mechanical level is what I do in a nutshell, and that I believe has been the exciting aspect of this field, which has driven me throughout. And every day I find something new that, about current flow. I think that the opportunities for everyone in IIT Bombay, I think we have improved and we are constantly improving significantly in terms of what kind of research we are doing. And I believe the electrical engineering in IIT Bombay is quite state of the art. But right now, electrical engineering itself has these several, branches: EE1, EE2, EE3 to EE7. So we belong to the EE7 group, which is the devices. I'm sure that whatever I'm saying right now, what I'm going to say is about E7 research, but I believe that everyone else is equally, state of the art. So E7, I think IIT Bombay boasts one of the most advanced, or at least in India, we are probably the best nanoelectronics, set of people in devices. In fact, I also believe that we have our group, the 6 or 7. I think there are 15 faculty. I think we can also. I think our set of people have such diverse interests that I think if you bring all these together, even in a very good university, that's a big deal. So IIT Bombay's device research, I think, is very good, and I think students should tap the opportunities that are present here. I think, and we are only improving. Let me put it this way: we have both theories groups as well as experimental groups, and I think we have a lot of experimentalists working on various facets of devices, right? And that diversity and the fact that the facilities are improving ever since I joined till date, the experimental facilities have improved significantly. So I feel that opportunities are only on the rise, and I think students, it is the right time to decide, sort of decide whether you want to do theory, experiment, and I'm sure you will find the right fit in terms of what you want to do. So I think IIT Bombay's electrical engineering research in general is a very, very vibrant situation. And I have only seen it on a, going up slope since I joined. And we are constantly hiring very good faculty. And I think faculty who are here are quite world class. And many are here because they wanted to come back to India for some reason or the other, personal or whatever drives them back. It's not like they just okay, I'm not getting something in US, so I'm here kind of thing. So in that scenario, I think we are headed for in a very good direction. Future wise, I think at least in devices, IIT Bombay's device group is also going quite forward in very important directions for both India and in the world research milieu. For instance, quantum technologies, something IIT Bombay is working very hard on, and we have a few faculties and my colleagues. They're also working on areas of neuromorphic 2D devices, spintronics, and we have theoreticians and solar, and we also have good faculty in solar and photovoltaics, CMOS. So pretty much covering a wide gamut of devices. So I can only see that the future is getting more and more bright in this area. Now, speaking of the other branches of electrical engineering, I think that we also have a wide mix of people. And I only know that they work on a lot of state of the art topics, but I'm not able to comment on who is doing what. But I can only see we have about 72 faculty or something. And I think that's a huge, even at the top university level, that's a very large number of faculty and a diverse pool of faculty in here. So my only advice, if I should give any at this point, is that students should be able to tap it and really do well with this. And vice versa to the faculty. Faculty should also tap the bright students' abilities. So it goes both ways. But I think the future is very bright in this regard. The best thing about teaching is the following, right? So Richard Feynman, who's one of my favorite sort of teachers as a researcher, and I think everyone has heard about him. He said one thing very nicely: if you don't understand something, teach it. That's it, right? So each time I teach anything, I get new insights on it. And one of the most important thing is that teaching is very energy consuming, but at the same time, it's like a music performance, and it's very exciting every time you go on and actually explain something on board. And I have seen that I have, for instance, taught a course 3 times, let's say, in 3 consecutive years. Each time I only gained new insights, thanks to the great students, thanks to the fact that the second time I revisit something and go to the board and explain it, I actually immediately on the spot it gives rise to some more, let's say, more insights into the same simple thing. For instance, I have taught 301 electromagnetic waves, and this whole transmission line, right? First time I taught it, yes, it was a bit flaky. I would sort of not see the full thing. But when I went in the second time, everything got more and more clear. And the very fact that, I could actually simplify complex things in waveguides and antennas back into a very simple way of looking at it. And and the same thing with various other courses. So teaching only improves your insight in a topic, and that eventually helps you in research also, because once you start seeing things in a more, simplified and a holistic way, it really helps in thinking about a very hard problem that you're trying to solve. You can think of hundreds of ways in which you can kind of converge into a possible explanation of what is going on. So I think teaching is a very, very integral part of any researcher's life. And I really think at every stage it was very exciting. And I'm also very excited to teach new courses only for this reason. Every little thing adds to my sort of arsenal, right? So next semester I probably will teach 207 for minors, and I'm really excited for this, for instance. And last year I taught a completely new course that is topological electronics. Once again, I wanted to learn the topic, and it really, really helped. Just focusing your mind on 5 pages you want to teach, and then get it to the level where you just go and explain it at the basic level and build up. And so that has always excited me. Yeah. And now about academia. And academia comprises teaching and research. And somehow I believe they're intertwined to some extent, unless you get a completely disjoint course from what your research is, right? And IIT Bombay, at least electrical engineering, has been nice enough that I've never been given a very completely strange off the charts course, right? For instance, I've never had to teach, let's say, probability. Actually, that would have been you good, but maybe some random circuit course or something, which is good, but I probably cannot do good justice to it. So in that sense, it has been kind of intertwined, because some of the concepts here and there are sort of, at least experience here helps me in the other way, and so on. So a career in academia comprises of teaching, research, plus other activities. So it's quite a, all-encompassing job, right? You have to first teach, which requires a lot of preparation. And then you have your research activities, several students, several projects, and then you do a lot of administrative jobs, right? For instance, manage projects, a lot of, finances, so on and so forth. So it's quite an all-encompassing job. In fact, when I wanted to go into academia, I did not even know that it is this complicated, right? I have so many things to do, and it's exhausting. And now with the Zoom thing, it's very fatigueful. Okay, so what made me go into academia is the following. I had interviewed in industry, and at some stage, I was asked some question. I mean, right when I was finishing my PhD, I was asked a question about, do you know, you're not an experimentalist, but when have you actually tweaked around with things and played around with stuff and done practical stuff? And at that point, I was kind of saying that I'm very good at Legos, for instance, from childhood. And I'm also a musician, and I work on synthesizers, and I know how to, generate tones by adjusting various things. And blah, blah. I gave this type of interviews. And then it turned out that the kind of knobs you got to turn on a daily basis was not that exciting for me at that stage. It's not like I, create a tone and go to AR Rahman and say, okay, we can apply this. It's not even at that level. It's more like I felt I had to do the same thing every day. Whereas I'm not saying anything wrong about industry. Maybe there are very good industry jobs, but the kind that I was exposed to from the device aspect was like I have device modeling. I got to do this. I got to play around with parameters and get good stuff out, which is good. Industry is what gives you the product finally, right? It's not like I can sit and imagine about black holes and then I can't get a computer. What's the point, right? But academia was exciting to me at that point of time because every day was a new day, right? Literally, today is a new day for me because I'm even talking to you about this, right? So that kind of challenges I never thought I would face in industry. It would have been a nice life: go to office, work 9 to 5, come back, relax, and you go up. And of course, climbing the ladder in the industry requires managerial skills, right? Which I didn't think I was that good at. In a sense, I was not that trained to be a PR person or somebody who could take a small group, tell them get this work done, and then I at that time I didn't think that I could do all that. But it seems like you have to do it in a faculty position too, right? You have to guide students to get work done, and yeah. So I always felt that academia was a neat career for me because I felt after my PhD I really wanted to do more research, more research, more research. Yeah, so it was a natural continuation of how I wanted to see myself, and the teaching aspect excited me too. But again, a very strong word of advice: everything is not for everyone. So if somebody really likes industry, that's also great. If somebody likes academia, that's also great. But the challenges are there in both, right? And in terms of money, I would strongly feel there is not like a huge difference unless you climb the corporate ladder, like become a managerial person, go towards a CTO, CEO, big type. Then, of course, there's a huge gap in the money. But if you are, let's say you decide to stay in US, if you're looking at, faculty positions versus, regular industry jobs, I wouldn't think that that is a factor that should really, kind of swallow your interest and go into industry type of situation. I would say I'm learning a lot with these interactions. And I first started, I was a little more short-tempered, I would say, and I would get a bit flustered when, let's say, students don't attend properly or did not appear to show interest. And sometimes I may have chided right there. That didn't come out very well. Over time, I slowly became more mature. And what stood out is the kind of students are very fast in noticing things and more sensitive actually. So sometimes if something happened, it would come out in the feedback, which I really took it in a positive sense. Because one of the time I used to shout at people, why aren't people attending? And then the feedback came out very nice that why is he shouting at us who are attending and asking about people who are not attending, for instance, right? The other types of feedback I have got, which was because in my first few times, again, I was just starting out, and people are, I mean, teaching 301 to IIT undergrads is a bit intimidating. So maybe I was not the best prepared back then, and my answers were not like as high quality as I would think it should be. And sometimes very smart students pick you up, and you can be, I could say, you could be decimated in a few seconds. So those kind of intimidating situations have given rise to, I would say, a little bit of embarrassment, and then trying to give answers eventually may have not worked out well in the initial stages of my teaching career, to be frank. And those kind of things, it really helped me prepare, especially the feedback, because I think you've got to maintain a cool head and then try to sort of at least get to a point of clarifying the doubts very clearly, which I learned over time. And I think the first 2 3 courses was a bit of a, let's say, warm up in that great teaching exercise. But some interesting feedbacks came that included things like the classroom AC should be there, and the classroom is stuffy. Sometimes in a course that I have good rating, I end up getting such feedbacks, which is not in my hands, right? And this room requires air conditioner, this room requires, and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, but overall the feedback from students has been very conducive for me to kind of improve myself. This is actually a very difficult question. There is no one size fits all answer for this. Uh, okay, so let's start with the stress levels. I strongly feel that I mean, there's a big, although we are probably half a generation away in terms of generation gap, there is still a gap between people who grew up in the millennium times and the people who grew up in the 90s, mainly the internet, and also the fact that people are probably a little more, individualistic at this moment, and probably not very highly social and things like maybe I don't know. So I personally feel that this whole pandemic and lockdown situation has given a lot of people a lot of other kinds of mental trauma and stress, and alleviating such a stress, I strongly advise students who are going through any amount of mental stress of this kind to actually seek professional help. It's very important. There's no point in shying away from saying that, people will call me this, people will call me this. The first thing you should get rid of is that darn peer pressure, right? One of the things that happened even in my time is peer pressure. Okay, why are you doing this work? It's boring. Why are you doing that? You should just follow your own intuition. So my first step is to seek help. Second, if you're getting heavily stressed out, if you're simply having a mild fatigue of a day or two, that you can just take a break, relax. I don't know, watch Netflix. I don't know, whatever you like to do, or play music. I don't know what your hobbies are, and please keep a hobby in sight, right? I usually take my hobbies very seriously because music is my main serious hobby. I mean, I'm deeply into it. Sorry, I'm very deeply into it in terms of performance, whatever it is, learning, hearing, etc. Take some hobby seriously. Take some time off the computer. Take some time into probably relating to your parents. I assume if you're at home, or siblings. And most importantly, if none of this works, also there's another option. There are these meditation techniques. I think each one has. I don't think I'm not advising you to go into some path of any particular organization or anything. I'm not for that. All I'm saying is there are mindfulness techniques or whatever techniques, whichever fits your mold, or a few seconds, or I mean a few minutes to half an hour a day. If that calms you down, great. If none of these techniques work, I think we must seek professional help. There's nothing wrong. Just like, I fall sick, I get fever. I mean, God forbid it's not COVID. I just go and get my medicine and I'm done. The same way, if none of these standard techniques are alleviating your stress or alleviating your sort of mental state or getting you to a state where you were before the pandemic, my strong advice is to probably seek professional help, talking through your parents or some counselor or something that you're comfortable with, and not fall for peer pressure in the sense that people will be thinking that, oh, what will they think of me? Oh, they'll think I belong to this category. No, that you should not shy in doing that. If you are still not that, I mean, develop that much courage, at least speak to your faculty advisor. I'm sure you have one, all of us. It's a very important thing. Or connect your parents to the faculty advisor. Maybe they talk to them frankly or something like that. But please take the proactive steps before it gets to a stage where, I'm not able to handle. And then, there are several stages. First is this high anxiety level stage. Maybe that can be culled by, branching out into a hobby, few hours, few days, maybe some meditation or some sort of a, thing, and interaction with parents, siblings get sorted out. No, next step is heavy amount of stress. And then you reach a point where, okay, I give up. So before any such thing happens, I think it should be culled at this earlier levels. Yeah. So yeah, but let us hope that this is the last of the semesters that it goes online, right? My main advice is I'm very, very, very highly concerned about the previous question of yours, the last question. And I strongly think that you're still young. And I think worst case scenario is also not that bad for your career. Worst case scenario is okay, I'm done with this semester, let me chill out. First thing is to take care of yourself and your sort of mental health. And for that, you should seek some help First, either your parents, siblings, that works, colleagues, nothing works, then probably take up something like meditation or take up hobbies, something, nothing works, seek professional help because we have to get through this pandemic smoothly. And I think we are in the final stages, hopefully. So I really wish everyone all the best. And if anyone wants to discuss any such things, or it will be good, I can always be around if needed. And secondly, interesting thing is that I have some students, and often if they're not willing to discuss research or academic work, I actually discuss music with them. Sometimes I just go to the Zoom meeting. I will just say some of them are into music. I figured out, and then we just talk some stuff. It kind of makes things much more like cooler, and the stress levels go down, and you can actually focus mindfully into what you are actually doing. So yeah, this is pretty much what I have. And as I told you, it's not a one size fits all. This kind of advice. There are several routes towards alleviating that kind of stress, right? Some people may go the spiritual route. Some people may go the other route where I can find you know better solutions to the problem. It really depends on person to person. There are several options.